Hello everybody and welcome back to Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler here as always for Cool Stuff Inc. and this is Gruul Monsters. That's right, from my quarantine to yours, it is Punting Pioneer like clockwork every Thursday here on Cool Stuff. I know that everyone is stuck at home right now and please everybody keep safe. But you know what? We still have some Magic we can play. We still have Punting Pioneer. We still have Mining Modern. And you know what? I'm still having a great time bringing you these videos. It's one of the things that I look forward to every week, actually. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. With that said, let's get right into this deck. Gruul Monsters. Now, you might remember sort of the monster moniker has been around a couple times in Standard. We had it back in, I think, Scars of Mirrodin Standard at some point. I think there was a Jund Monsters deck, also with the original Theros. Then we had Rekindling Phoenix when it was out in a Monsters deck. And here we are with a Monsters deck in Pioneer. I don't really know what Monsters means. I don't know what it means to make a monster deck. Especially, I guess, with Ikoria coming out. Plenty more to choose from. But I think it basically means you don't play a bunch of small creatures. You play a bunch of big creatures, but you're still an aggro deck, sort of. And that's basically what this deck is. We play the 8 mana dorks here with Mystic and Llanowar Elves to ramp us. Then we have the Scavenging Oozes, generic card, but you'll notice those are the only 2 drops. Everything else 3 or higher, we want to ramp into it on turn 2 with a mana dork. And we have Bonecrushers, Gruul Spellbreakers, Haste, Riot there. Kiora, why not? This is a nice card advantage engine and a ramp spell. I mean, you can actually go turn 1 mana dork, turn 2 Kiora, turn 3 Glorybringer, because this can untap any permanent, so that's pretty sweet. Klothys, this is a nice new addition. I love this card. Just a great value card. Kind of messes up your opponent's incremental value to you. And that's what this deck does. You can see the aggro creatures here, right? Between the ramp and the Bonecrushers being the burn, and the haste from the Spellbreakers, and the haste from the Glorybringers, and everything else. You can see how we can do damage to somebody. What the deck maybe struggles a little more with is interacting or dealing with a grindy matchup. And that's why we get to these next cards. You know, Questing Beast, yeah, good when you're attacking. Not quite so good when you're trying to sort of grind out an opponent with a bunch of removal, but Rekindling Phoenix is great for that. When it dies, it comes back, takes 2 removal spells or exile effects to get rid of it. Vivien, of course, good when you're attacking, and when you'd play it, and 1 turn later you can ultimate it, and we'll get to the sideboard here in a minute, but we just have a bunch of Planeswalkers too, right? Between the Chandras and the Viviens and the Kioras, we have a lot of sort of resilient threats we get down onto the table, and then having haste and a non-zero amount of our creatures also goes a long way. So pretty straightforward deck in that sense, green-red, but you know what? This deck, it's got a lot working for it, honestly. It's a cool aggro-ish deck. It's really a mid-range deck, I suppose. Onto the sideboard here. This has got some fun ones. So because we are a Vivien deck, and Vivien can -5 to get a creature card from your sideboard and put it in your hand, we've got some fun ones. We've got a Reclamation Sage if you need to blow something up. We've got a Rampaging Ferocidon if your opponent, I guess, is gaining a bunch of life or playing tokens. We've got Shifting Ceratops, kind of the classic one from Standard. You get to attack a bunch, protection from blue, can't be countered. And here's one I love. Never seen much love, but Ruric, Thar, the Unbowed, the old 6/6 for 6. Vigilance, reach, attack each combat. Jeez, I can't talk too many words. It attacks each combat if able. But here's the big one. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, deal 6 damage to them. Pretty good against your combo opponent. Damping Sphere, of course, for your Lotus Veil decks, or whatever it is. The land that taps for a lot of mana. Cindervines, again, for the control combo decks. Kraul Harpooner. This is a nice one to bring in. You can fight a flying creature with it. If your opponent's playing Gilded Goose, it's kind of a free way to kill that. That's nice. Fry. Nice generic removal spell here, but here's some ones I like. Shaper Sanctuary. This card is so good to play on turn 1 or 2 against a deck that's just overloaded on Fatal Pushes and so on. And Shadowspear is a new one from Theros Beyond Death, but it's just good. It's actually making its way into a lot of Pioneer sideboards, where just for 3 mana, you can play it, put it on something, and just get in there. Also, notice, by the way, your opponent's Lotus land with Hexproof will not have Hexproof if you use this. That said, we don't have a lot of ways to interact with our opponent's lands, so to speak, but just saying, it's a neat effect of this card. Everybody, there you go. It is Gruul Monsters here on Punting Pioneer. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Corbin Hosler. Let's get to the games. Hey everybody, welcome into the matches here. You can see our hand is a bit of a stinker. This game trail doesn't really work the way we want it to with no forest or mountain in our hand. That said, I think this was a difficult hand to mulligan because it still kind of works out similarly. Look, all of our cards are good. We're just a turn behind, but that's not the end of the world. We get to play our Mystic. Well, we might get to play our Mystic next turn. And the idea behind that was, yeah, we have tap lands here, but Mystic still allows us. It's basically the hand would work out as if we didn't have a mana dork. That's kind of the way I look at it, because the mana dork makes up for the lands coming to play tapped. And yeah, granted, we don't have to play until turn 3, but we were on the draw. We could have, drawn an untapped land or literally any forest or mountain to reveal to make the hand really good. So I think the risk was worth it, given that the downside is we still have a playable hand. I mean, that's perfectly fine. My opponent actually ditching the Kiora here. I assume that means they don't want us to draw more cards. Not too sure what they're up to, by the way, but I guess we'll play the Rootbound Crag here. I don't know if that matters or not. Okay, so like I said, I mean, look, this was kind of the bad way our hand plays out, right? Where we don't hit our land early, but we still have a turn 3 Chandra up until this Fatal Push anyways, and that's fine. And now our opponent, again, basically doing nothing for their turn, slowing us down. But now if I want, I can just slam this Spellbreaker and go to town, which I guess is probably what I'm going to do. I think it's worth resolving while we can. My opponent is playing blue mana after all, so I think that this is probably correct. Just give it haste, slam on in there. And next turn, we have 4 mana for the Chandra. Then if we hit land, we can Glorybringer, and if not, we always have the Elvish Mystic fallback plan here. So we're getting Dreadboard. Okay, so my opponent just very much wants to, it seems, they're playing control, right? This is probably a Grixis Fires list or something like that, and we very much might get to resolve this Chandra here. We'll see. Oh, yeah. Snap resolve that Chandra, as a matter of fact. I can add red mana here. So I can do 2 damage to my opponent or add red mana to cycle the Sheltered Thicket. That's a little tempting, I won't lie. That way, if my opponent also were to have, say, another Dreadboard or something, we've gotten some value out of it. I'm in. All right. Because that land coming into play tapped here, that doesn't really necessarily do anything for us with the Glorybringer anyways. We can play Glorybringer with the Chandra should we need to. We can't cast the card we would have plussed anyway. So, all right, my opponent's slamming the Dragon God itself, Nicol Bolas here. That's a lot of words. 5 mana, it has all the abilities, and they're going to use it to take out our Chandra. So this is one of the few ways in which we could legitimately get punished here. Man, I guess I'll play all of them and make my opponent play board wipe. They're down to 2 cards here. This Nicol Bolas is definitely a bit of a problem. That was honestly a great answer to our Chandra there, because it means that we don't have it around. We don't have the 5th mana to play the hasty Glorybringer. Now they're going to dork around with this. So the good news is we might get to untap and go after the Dragon God here. Or not. My opponent just killed 3 mana dorks in a turn. This is going to be pretty unlucky, I think, if we get punished here. All right. Perhaps we didn't. It would have felt very bad to cycle that land earlier, and then, my opponent takes away 4 different ways or something for us to actually play our 5-drop. But looks like we didn't run into that issue. We get to attack the Bolas here. Take it on down. So, all right. I don't know that we're ahead. I mean, my opponent is certainly ahead on cards. They have 3 cards in hand once they untap. They have the Bonecrusher Giant they can play from exile. And now they're digging. So they're going to untap with a very powerful hand. And we're going to need some help to get back in this one. But I mean, frankly, when your opponent has, a bunch of removal for your mana dorks, resolves a Planeswalker and Thought Erasures you, it's going to be hard to win, but this is what our sideboard's for. We have the Shaper's Sanctuary, we have the other Vivien, I think the 3-mana Vivien, that allows us to play our creatures at flash speed, which is also annoying against this deck. So we have a lot of ways, I think, to interact. We have a Reclamation Sage, assuming my opponent is playing Fires, which I imagine is the case. Let's see what happens here. I mean, I don't have great hopes for this game, but I think get to the sideboarded games we'll have a bit of a better chance here. Another Bolus it is. So, all right. I assume this one's minusing to get the Glorybringer. We do have plenty of ways to kill this, though. In which case we could, maybe be back in the game. And honestly, that's that's probably one of the best right there. Questing Beast. Remember to attack my opponent. It took me a while to learn that lesson, to attack your opponents with the Questing Beast, because you get the Planeswalker anyways. But I've learned. Big brain plays here. Only took me, what, 6 months? Alright, well, we dealt with the first thing our opponent did, which was a Planeswalker. Now they have the Dreadbore. Let's see what the follow-up is. Follow-up's a Bonecrusher. Okay, well, that's theoretically beatable. And that's not a bad one. Alright, our deck is giving us a shot here. I don't know if we're going to pull through. My opponent even has a Castle Locthwain to rebuild their hand, and they're not playing lands either, which is probably not a great sign for us, right? That means their hand is just all gas, but hey, our deck allowed us to take out the Planeswalker, and now we get to try to brawl with this Scavenging Ooze. Wow, bullish tribal, as it turns out over there. I'll just eat some stuff. Kind of need to eat my own creatures, not for the life gain so much, but for the counters here. And now I can untap and swing through this thing. See what we hit. Okay, not ideal. But it is a big Scavenging Ooze. I mean, the problem... And my opponent can't flip their Bolus, so... It's actually not that bad for us, right? I'm going to go ahead and eat some of their stuff now, because we do know they are playing Dig Through Time. Because there was no way to do lethal to my opponent there, I don't believe. We could have gotten up to 8, I think. Okay, I'll eat this. And go ahead and eat our Questing Beast, I guess. Alright. Get up to a 6. Oh, no. I did that back. Oh, my gosh. Alright, well. That might hurt. That one might come in missing that damage. Might turn out to be a little painful. It turns out I just stopped set on my damage step. But I moved through blockers, so we'd actually already dealt damage by the time I went to that, and I didn't pay attention to their life total. Alright. Okay, fair enough. Lesson learned. Don't know if it makes that big of a difference. Our opponent should have blocks for it for the rest of the game here. Our life total under a little bit of duress here, but this is going to come down to what's in their hand and whether we can draw out of this more than anything. You know, this Bolus number 2 hits the battlefield. Sweet deck. I cannot discard. I play this card in a Commander, though. Alright, see, this is the thing. We were just always going to die with this card. That said, we do get to force a chump block out of our opponent. Wow, and they're chumping with a Jace, too. That's just so painful for them. Now, if they have a land in hand, it will be good enough anyways, but we'll see. Because, you know, the thing is they get to untap here. They get to transform this Bolus. Once you transform this Bolus, you can do a billion things. One of those things is deal 10 damage to target creature or Planeswalker, so that will kill our Ooze. But, wow, look at this. My opponent actually did not... Wow, okay. Looks like they didn't have the 7th land there. And now they're going to be forced into another chump block. Okay. Grow this thing while I can, I guess. This life gain's actually coming pretty handy, right? The extra 8 life we gain making a big difference right now. That said, I don't know if we've got enough. I mean, I guess it depends on what my opponent's last card is in hand here. And they're actually going to value the Jace over the Bonecrusher there. So my opponent realizing, I think, that they're not winning the race and they need to find an answer to what we have going on rather than trying to race it. I would not hate to have that 2 points of damage back, right? And have my opponent at 3 right now, especially with haste and burn creatures in our deck. It's a little painful. But that said, we might get away with this, although... Wow, look at this. So, I won't lie, I've never seen this before. Not that I could say these situations come up very often, but my opponent can transform their Nicol Bolas, comma the Ravager, into Nicol Bolas, comma the Arisen. When I play this card in deck in Commander, it's Bolas Tribal. I keep a Bolas count. I take that dice up every time I put a differently named Nicol Bolas into play, but here's the thing. This Nicol Bolas actually doesn't have the ability to kill a creature. So they're just going to draw 2 cards. They can deal 10 damage, which is not the same thing, as it turns out, in the Scavenging Ooze, as an 11/11 gets through it there. Now, that said, we're just doing nothing. We had our good draws, and now we found the poor ones. So we'll see what's going on here. My opponent going to have access to something like 6 new cards from the time they activated this mana and when they untapping it to do something. So this is still pretty bad news for us all around. Having drawn, Llanowar Elf here in the late going, but with them at 5, we got the Llanowar Elves, we got haste creatures in our deck, we got Bonecrusher Giants for burn. Wish I hadn't missed that 2 points of damage earlier, but we could theoretically still get there right now. I think 4's basically the magic number, right? In the sense that that's the number we can one-shot them from. We can't really do it from 5, I don't think, but we have Questing Beasts and Glorybringers and things like that that can deal up to 4 damage. Another Bolus, okay, sure. Bolus is for days over there, but you know what? That Bolus looks a lot like a chump blocker to me. They have 5 cards in hand. How do those cards not kill us right now? Oh my gosh, that means trample. If this resolves and just works, and oh my gosh, it sure looks like it's going to. That is just disgusting. I guess giving it... Oh my gosh, we got there. Look at that, everybody. We were so dead. My opponent reveals 5 lands and a Thoughtseize. Sorry, friend. So look, sometimes you misclick and you just never get punished, all right? Like, what can you say? When you're running hot, you're running hot. Okay, I can't believe we took game 1 there, but I'm quite glad that we did. I get the Shaper Sanctuary in here for sure. 5 damage to Planeswalker that's white or blue. Well, Bolus is blue, as a matter of fact. This is creature or Planeswalker, correct? That's white or blue. Yeah, this will hit Nicol Boluses. That's great for us. Get this in here. Do I want anything else, though? Like Ruric Thar? Or do I want to keep Ruric Thar in the sideboard to pull it out with a Vivien? I mean, I think that's probably what I want. I think the Cindervines here is reasonable. I didn't see fires. Surely they have fires, but I didn't see it. That's probably fine to boards this in. All right, this is 1 billion cards here. 67 cards. What do we want to do? I can cut down on the dorks. I almost always do that. I don't know if that's, technically correct or not. Rekindling Phoenix, very good against a lot of their removal. The Bonecrushers are probably just medium. Come on, Magic Online. What are you doing here? Can I just not... Alright, there we go. Magic Online just... sometimes just does not like what you try to do with your mouse. Okay, what to cut? Klothys, I think, is actually pretty decent. It's a good one to put down early. Can deal damage as the game goes on, just sort of adds up. I like all the haste creatures. I like that this can kill a Bolus. Somewhat on curve, anyways. I think I might be able to cut a Phoenix here. I need 2 more cuts. I feel like the fries are just a necessity. And honestly, the Bonecrushers are pretty good for killing Jaces too. This is kind of rough. Tough call for sure. I really don't want to cut Glorybringer, but I guess we're on the draw here. We'll just cut down a little bit and see what works out, I guess. Usual disclaimer, not an expert with sideboarding with any of these decks. We kind of figure them out as we go along, but that's just the way it is. You pick up a new deck, you've got to figure it out. And that's the beauty of these series. You get to see me figure out a deck on the fly. I get to make the mistakes that you might make when you're new to a deck, but if you watch me make them, maybe you don't have to, right? And trust me, it's called Punting Pioneer for a reason. All right, do we want to keep this hand? I don't think that I do. There's nothing wrong with it per se. It's just not very good. This hand much better. Much, much better, as a matter of fact. Look at that. And because my opponent is playing Thought Erasure here, I'm actually going to lead off with the Shaper Sanctuary. We're not going to get Thoughtseized as they lead off on Fabled Passage here. Land's going to come to play tap, but they could Thought Erasure us, and they mulliganed as well. So leading on Shaper Sanctuary here is arguably stronger than leading on Llanowar Elves. Now, I say arguably because I'm not sure. You know, with my opponent, instead of having a bunch of removal or whatever, just had a Jace and just slams Jace on turn 2, and I went for Sanctuary over Elves. That probably feels pretty bad, so I think it's close. I think given our hand and the fact that we have 2 3-drops, we probably want to play the Llanowar Elves. The upside is just simply higher. And as a matter of fact, there's a thought erasure. So part of the reason I did this is we have 3 threats in our hand. So if I had the Shaper Sanctuary in play here, my opponent played Thought Erasure, I mean, that's actually what I would have preferred, right? That would have been great for us. But if I wanted to hedge a little bit against them playing something like Jace by having a faster clock on our end. You know, if they're trying to play Jace and go for the long-term card advantage, Sanctuary will be good, but it'll be a lot worse than just going Llanowar Elves into Spellbreaker, and putting the pressure on our opponent. Because if they had Thought Erasure the Sanctuary here, well, then we don't have the Sanctuary, which sucks because it's a great sideboard card. But we have 3 big attackers that they're going to have to deal with, and that means they spin a card and 2 mana in a turn on something that doesn't affect the board. So as you can see, they were forced into taking the Rekindling Phoenix as a result. And now we're free to just kind of go to town here with these haste creatures. And if we hit another land, it's going to be haste creature, haste creature, haste creature. And that's pretty good. Board wipes, probably the biggest concern, or my opponent, you know, going fires into a Planeswalker, something like that. But main phase opt, or rather upkeep opt for them, that means they're digging for lands. So that's great news for us. And they got there, but yeah, they don't want to be main phasing opt. That's not really where they want to be. Kroxa, huh? I got a decision to make now. Discard the Beast because I can't cast it. Discard the Shaper Sanctuary because I just want to go Spellbreaker into Beast and try to race them. It depends whether or not we think we're getting board wiped next turn, honestly. It's a tough call. I think I'm going to pitch the Questing Beast, though. I think. Kroxa's a sweet one, though. Fan of my opponent's deck, for sure. So my opponent has gone... Gosh, their hand's just got to be full of Planeswalkers or removal. I think I have to pitch the Sanctuary. Just because we're just dead to a bolus, basically, otherwise. But this way, we get to come in for a bunch of damage one way or another. In fact, if I hit a land, I'll probably play the Spellbreaker and just attack with the Llanowar Elves. Glorybringer is not a good one in this situation. And now the really concerning thing is if my opponent doesn't tap into a board wipe, a Languish or something like that, we're going to legitimately be in trouble not having a 3rd land here and not being able to play this Questing Beast. That said, I don't know if that was the situation, if Sanctuary would have really got us there either. And my opponent's dreadboring us? That's probably good. We're down to 2 cards in hand now. And the Sanctuary would have been good, but if my opponent doesn't wipe our board and we just get to keep playing threats, so fingers crossed for an untapped land here. Not quite. Not actually the end of the world, though. As a matter of fact, with my opponent at 5 life, the Cindervines is a legitimate threat. One, if they do have a fires, I mean, we get to untap and get them. And it represents, just casting Fires of Invention represents 3 damage our opponent takes to our Cindervines. So, and if they're trying to play fair, Cindervines also taxes them in a relevant way. This is actually, low-key, a pretty rough spot for my opponent here. They're going for a Kroxa, not Unearth, an Escaped Kroxa here. Well, you know what? Escaped Kroxa doesn't get pinged by Cindervines, and I can't attack into it, so not the worst for them. I'd really like to hit a land and play this Questing Beast. All right, beautiful. Now this is great because my opponent is forced to block this one. I think I can attack with this. If my opponent blocks it and go to 1, they're just dead to Cindervines, right? The next time they play a non-creature spell. That's what they're going to do, huh? Nope. You realize you may need to cast another non-creature spell to win this game, huh? I don't know that their deck has life gain. It's certainly possible they're playing black. There's some amount of life gain effects that they could have access to, but this is kind of the block I expected. They just can't win if they go to 1. They just die as soon as they cast anything that's not a creature. So they're forced to eat block the Questing Beast straight here. Now they need a board wipe, and the thing is, the board wipe puts them to 1 life, But this is the only way they can win the game, is to board wipe, go down to 1 life, do something. I guess casting Murderous Rider is kind of your out here. They have 1 card in hand, and I guess this doesn't technically win. They could have removal. They might just scoop. There we go. We took it down. That was a pretty clutch Cindervines. Now, that game was nice. We actually had... We're playing a Gruul Monsters mid-range deck. It's not... And it can go different ways. We can put counters on these things, and we play really defensive, big posture. Instead, that game, we sort of, I think, correctly identified that our opponent was digging for lands, only had certain things they could do, and that just keeping the pressure on them was right. And I didn't want to play the grindy game with the Shaper Sanctuary. I wanted to play the aggro game with all these haste creatures, and the Cindervines was the perfect card to top it all off. Gruul Monsters, everybody. 1-0. Here we go. Here we go. More Gruul Monsters. And you know what's good in a deck like this? Gotta have lands to cast your spells and a nice recursive threat like Rekindling Phoenix. But I think I'm gonna mulligan it anyways. Down to 6. Oof. I think I gotta keep this one. We don't have any red mana currently. But we're on the draw. I don't love going down to 5. And look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You have to have... Every hand needs something to go right. This hand hits a red source. This hand is great. Our opponent playing the Ensoul deck over there, so... Or just Affinity, I guess. What is it? You remove... I was going to cover it up with my hand on my screen. Turns out that doesn't work. But get rid of the Stone Cold Serpent. Imagine it's not there and we're playing against 2006 era Affinity over there. All right, give me a red source. Oh, thank you, game. It's just nice when it's easy, All right, so I'm pretty happy with my start. I don't have anywhere near the amount of permanents as my opponent. They could be coming in at us for 6 damage here oh my gosh. Okay. This actually works out. This is protection from what? Protection from multicolored. I could block. I won't, but I could. Now, this is going to work out great for us. This is actually much better for us than my opponent having an Ensoul hand, because now I can Bonecrusher. Ooh, that was close. Would like to cast Stomp. I do not want to cast Bonecrusher Giant. Would like to cast the spell Stomp to get this thing out of here, and I get to play my other Llanowar Elves. So next turn we have access to 5 mana, which is, I guess, not actually a super convenient amount unless we draw another 2-drop. We could Stomp something else here. But yeah, if my opponent had a, say, an Ensoul artifact there, turn one of these, the Ornithopter into a 5/5, that actually would have been a lot worse for us than them having this Overseer that we could hit. Now, the Ghostfire Blade on the Stone Cold Serpent, a little annoying, but not the end of the world, really. And Scavenging Ooze is pretty good, too, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to shock this in. I think I can get away with this. I'm going to play the Spellbreaker, and remember last game I talked about how we can go aggro or we can play defensive? My opponent... Okay, well, I guess in this case, we're getting Metallic Rebuked, but what I was going to say is, you know what, I can play my Scavenging Ooze off of this. I'm in. The plan was to play Gruul Spellbreaker as a 4/4, just have a blocker for the Stone Cold Serpent, make my opponent draw out of it, and a deck full of Ornithopters and so on. Now, the second Ghostfire Blade here is pretty good, but so is Scavenging Ooze. So is the double Bonecrushers we have access to. We're going to take some beatdowns here, but I think we can probably find a way back in it, especially when they just make the game easy. Sometimes the game is just easy. You just draw the Glorybringer. Do this and exert, please. Shoot down this thing. Yeah, Glorybringer is a heck of a Magic card. It makes me kind of sad that Pioneer has evolved past Glorybringer to a large extent. There was a time, maybe not the very beginning of Pioneer, but after the first couple months of it and the sort of the initial round of bannings where I'm not going to call it Chonky Red. I'm just not. I'm sorry. It's not Chonky Red. That is not a name. But I did like the Big Red deck and its Glorybringers of being good, right? That was just a really neat sort of aspect of the metagame. Meanwhile, though, my opponent found the line. Yeah, this is bad for us. I don't think that's going to get us out of it. Skilled I mean, they went Ghostfire Blade into Skilled Animator after dumping their initial hand. That's probably a about perfect for them. The skilled animator turning that Ornithopter into a 5/5. I can't block it. I can only gain 3 life up to 5, which still leaves me dead because they have 7 in the air, and this inconveniently has 3 toughness. So on to game 2, I guess. Very nice draw out of them. That's why I play the deck. All right, notice this gives a creature vigilance and reach, so I'm going to at least consider it here. Target creature plants, so it hits skilled animator. What does Ensoul Artifact do? I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to look this one up real quick. Alright, so Ensoul Artifact is a 2-mana enchantment. Enchanted Artifact is a creature with base power toughness 5/5. Alright, it does not make it blue. So the fries are probably pretty not great. Now, interestingly, the Cindervines are good here as a removal spell rather than a tax spell. I think maybe our Planeswalkers are less good. The Klothyses don't seem great here. The Phoenixes are good. The Questing Beasts are fine, I think. I do like having Planeswalkers, especially removal spell Planeswalkers, Chandra and Vivien, and I like having this is the ramp. We do need to cut something here. Give something like this a shot, maybe. I just can't help but feel it's probably more correct to cut a 4-drop, but I'm not sure which. So, all right, we'll give this a shot and see what we can do here. And you know what? I'm in for this hand. It's slow, but these are all very good Magic cards, and unless my opponent has a removal spell off the bat for our Mystic, turn 3 Rekindling Phoenix, turn 3 Questing Beast, turn 4 Glorybringer. These are all cards that are very good against their deck. So, you know what? I'm in. And we even have the basic mountain here, so we don't have to take damage from our mana base. We have our colors, and if I hit a 3-drop here, I even get to play it on curve. So maybe the most problematic thing we could see is the Ensoul Artifact on the Darksteel Citadel to make the indestructible 5/5. That'd probably be the biggest issue. I'm going to go ahead and play the Sheltered Thicket, I think. And then just pass the turn. I could attack. I don't think my opponent would block, but... Whoops. If they did block, that would be very bad for us. So, and there it is. The Ensoul Artifact has arrived. It is a 6/6 Stone Cold Serpent. We'll go down to 14 here. But, look, it doesn't have Trample. It just runs into a Phoenix all day long. That's what makes Rekindling Phoenix so good. You block with the Phoenix. You get the 0/1 token. And you get to your upkeep, you get your Phoenix back. I mean, it just actually blocks this thing all day long. My opponent needs a removal spell. They get it off the battlefield that way. But kind of a 2-for-1 in just the sense that as the board stands right now without anything else happening, their Rekindling Phoenix answers to Stone Cold Serpent. And if they choose to keep this back on defense, which is the most likely thing, notice for whatever bizarre reason this card actually has Reach. Reach, Trample, Protection for Multicolored. It's a lot of abilities. Talk about power creep. The old Ginger Brute, huh? It cannot be blocked. All right, so this is probably... Ooh. Okay. Well, my opponent's about to find out that this isn't going to work the way they want it to. And you know what? This actually means that I can now untap and swing with my Glorybringer. Does it have Trample? Did I miss that? Oh, it has Trample. I just read it without actually thinking it. Okay. Well, I take back a little bit of what I said. It has Trample, which is more annoying, but we can still deal with it. In a pretty reasonable fashion, actually. And besides, the block there is still correct. We obviously get our Rekindling Phoenix right back. And I even get a get an attack in. I can... Well, maybe I should actually... Maybe I should get in there with the Phoenix. It's hard to say. The Questing Beast with Death Touch obviously would trade with the Stone Cold Serpent straight up. But if my opponent had something for the Questing Beast and the Phoenix allows me to take less damage, so on, so on. And there you go. My opponent actually just passing the turn 2 lands, taking it all. So what do I want to do now? I guess I'm supposed to play a Glorybringer. Problem is if... I think it's correct. I think it's correct to play Glorybringer and just attack with the team. And honestly, probably exert the Glorybringer onto this. Otherwise, it just eats it anyways. This is a weird line. I don't know if it's correct. I'm not super familiar with my opponent's deck list. So, you know, I'm not positive what exactly they play. But I do know that this play, I think, it works out okay. Because by exerting the Glorybringer onto here, it has 4 damage on it. It now is going to, whatever it blocks, it's going to trade. It doesn't get the free block on the Glorybringer or the Phoenix, which means we get to get in the damage. And as they actually go for the Glorybringer block here, we get the clean 2-for-1, get in for 8. Let's see what my opponent's going to do here. Ah, okay. So that's a good play for them. But also good for us. Shrapnel Blast, sacrificing the Stone Cold Serpent. Oh, to put us down to 3, huh? Alright, I guess that means we're probably dead, huh? They found the 3rd land. What kills us? Second Shrapnel Blast will do it. Well, it turns out when you just take 10 to the face, it's hard to win. Alright, fair enough, I suppose. Our opponent got there. That was a nice match for them. Look, I think that matchup is probably favored for us, but double Shrapnel Blast will make anyone sad in a hurry. So, unfortunately, it didn't work out. I don't think I would have changed anything we did, but too bad. Oh, well. On to the next one. All right, here we go. Gruul Monsters on the play this time around. Don't think we can keep this one, though. This hand is extraordinarily slow. This is, frankly, not a ton better, but I kind of think we're priced into keeping this one here. Like, throw this Stomping Ground on the bottom. Guess. We're on the play, so that part is nice. I won't reveal. There's no reason to give away information when we're not doing anything with that mana. Scavenging Ooze into something, into Questing Beast, into Glorybringer. I mean, we've got a curve here. Alright, my opponent playing a little aggro, huh? A little mono-red Firebrand action. Okay, sure. Down to 19. Kiora. Okay. Now, I don't love... the life gain of Scavenging Ooze is obviously very good in the matchup, and I would love to play it later when it might actually have the opportunity to exile some creatures and gain some life, but I don't think we have that luxury here. I think we just have to play it and hope that things work out. Wow. But my opponent just doing stone nothing? Now, that is a bit of a gift, frankly, and I'm going to take full advantage of it. Cast this Kiora, cast this Llanowar Elves. In fact, my opponent both didn't attack me, didn't remove my creatures, but also didn't even add to the board. Means that we might just get on tap with this Kiora and Questing Beast / Glorybringer our opponent to death pretty quickly. I mean, this is good. This is good. I don't know anything about the matchup against a mono-red Devotion. Okay. I don't know what that means, but you know what? I am in. Ixalan Block Unite. Wily Goblin. I actually love this card. Get this treasure token. Sure. All of that said, though, this is obviously great for us. I have no idea what my opponent's doing. Unless this is going somewhere pretty nutty, our hand is just going to get them dead very quickly. I expected this play using the Firebrand on the Llanowar Elves. Frankly, that's no big deal for us, and I have a lot of options right now. And the one I think I'm actually going to go with is playing Chandra. I don't think I need to kill the Wily Goblin. Alright, we got rid of a forest. So, I don't know about this line necessarily, but I do think it's pretty solid. We have 2 Planeswalkers in play. The Chandra acts as a removal spell for most creatures they could play, if it was an Anax or something like that. We still get to untap into Questing Beast if we want, or Glorybringer if we draw a land. The only way we really get punished here, I don't even know, I guess, right? Like, this is just... Chandra can make mana for us. Kiora can make mana for us. It's going to be really difficult for my opponent to stop us from taking over the game with these creatures. They basically need removal spells for our Questing Beast and our Glorybringer, and then creatures to attack down our Planeswalkers. Going to be rough. And Chainwhirler is a pretty decent start. It allows the Wily Goblin to attack as well. Honestly, if they attack with the Goblin first, I would have just taken it. And for fear of Chainwhirler. But it does team up with the Firebrand to take out our Scavenging Ooze. So it's one of our plans down, but This still isn't great for them, right? I mean, just going to kill the Chain Whirler. And I have options for how I want to do that. And as a matter of fact, this is the way I want to do that. Playing the Glorybringer first because you want to exert. If you're going to exert, you want to do it as soon as possible so you get access to it again. But by doing it this way, by using the Kiora to cast this Glorybringer rather than the Chandra minus, we don't lose the Chandra. I get to plus the Glorybringer to kill the Chain Whirler. Also, you know, not for nothing, messing up their Nykthos a little bit here. And removing 3 red devotion from them. And now I still get to sort of play this fair game with my Chandra, where I just keep plussing up and pinging them. So they're down to 11. We're coming in for another 4 next turn, but 2 Planeswalkers, neither of which died to the wily Goblin. My opponent needs burn. They need removal. They need haste creatures. I guess a Chain Whirler would work again. A land would allow them to... It just hits opponents. So Torbrand will do it. Torbrand's a good one. Matter of fact, Torbrand is a very good one. Now the wily Goblin can kill my Kiora. Or kill my Chandra, or put my Chandra down to 1 if they wanted to go that route. I don't think I'd recommend that for them, but I don't know. We're getting a lot of value, but Torbrand, in theory, is problematic no matter what. But by not killing our Chandra, that means I get, in this turn, I actually have access to the mana from it. Although drawing this Vivien is another interest. We just got a lot of options here. Let's see what we hit. Cast a Bonecrusher Giant. I could actually cast the Stomp, but frankly, neither of those do too much for me, so I'm just not going to cast it. I'll put my opponent down to 8. And I'm not going to mess around. I'm just going to play Vivien and take out Torbrand. I could play the Questing Beast, put him down to 4, and have him, in theory, dead to Questing Beast next turn, while still drawing cards, but I just don't think you mess around with Torbrand. I think that one of the only ways we could actually lose the game is the Torbrand getting us. So I'd like to prevent that from happening. Now I have a blocker. I have 3 Planeswalkers in play. I've got an untapping Glorybringer, a Questing Beast in hand. It's actually just the same clock. We still kill them next turn with the Questing Beast, which is difficult to block, and the 4 in the air from the Glorybringer, you know, removing a blocker. So Chandra Pyromaster. This is funny. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty nice for them, actually. It's 1 damage to player or Planeswalker and a creature they control. So that was actually the dream for them, right? They take out Vivien and our Llanowar Elves. That was quite the nice play for them. I mean, they're dead, so, you know, it can only be so good. But that was pretty sweet for us. This card is neat for a couple reasons, but the biggest is which there was a time... For those of you who maybe weren't around then, this card was quite the player in Modern. Back in the day, right? The old days of Modern when you could play stuff like fair decks, people would play Jund. And when this card came out, M14, if I'm guessing, so it would have come out in the summer of 2013, if I'm remembering that correctly, it kind of revolutionized Jund because it was the first time Jund had advantage to a true card advantage engine. Remember, Bloodbraid Elf was banned still at the time. Dark Confidant was played, but, you know, Dark Confidant was a lightning rod. This was Jund never had access to a card like this, a top-end card that gave value, stuck around, gave card advantage, 0 ability there. This was just kind of a game changer for modern Jund back in the day. Now, it's so far away from playable now. I have Wrenn and 6. Modern today is just, not only is it not close to what it used to be, I don't even think I'd call it the same format as 2013, 2014, 2015 era Modern. The power levels are not just different, they're otherworldly. You know, you just completely different. And Pioneer is probably more powerful than Modern was then, frankly, once you factor in the power creeps. So it was cool. It was a nice throwback seeing my opponent play that card. That said, it's Mono Red Treasure, whatever you want to call that. Cindervines, I suppose. I guess. I don't even... There's no way this is correct against a red deck. Even if they have some of that stuff. Shadowspear seems good. The Rec Sage to take out their treasure token. Huh. Frankly, I think our deck list is probably pretty well set up against theirs already, so I'm really not going to stress about it that much. Just going to board out a... spell or ability, I'll play this. I'm going to board out some of the top end here. Actually, I'm going to board out a Klothys. Get that Glorybringer back in there. I'll give this a shot. I don't know. This seems fine. It seems like it's probably a pretty decent matchup for us. We have some amount of life gain in our deck. We've got resilient threats. I'm going to keep this hand. It is a maybe a little questionable, but Rekindling Phoenix is just such a powerful card when your opponent is trying to play fair. And they have Fanatical Firebrands and so on to take it out later, but it doesn't seem like a big deal. And we have all the mana dorks in the world, so as long as we can actually draw some real cards here, and that's one of the other reasons the Planeswalkers are so good in the deck. You have a lot of, not air, but you have a lot of mana ramp, right? You have 8 mana dorks. So if you just sort of look at, say, mana sources, you know, getting your lands, you have so many, right? Almost half your deck is mana sources at that point. It can be pretty easy to just flood out, and even though you have creatures, not exactly the same, you know. That said, this is exactly what kind of stuff we wanted there. Drawing Bonecrusher Giant so we can stomp the Ember Hauler before it can untap and use the mana to sack and deal 2 damage to any target. And we still get to play out our Llanowar Elves, so we're on track for this Phoenix next turn. This seems like it worked out pretty well for us. This is an interesting build. Ooh, spicy. It's an interesting build of mono red our opponent has. It's mono red devotion. That's what they're doing here. You know, that's red devotion. This is red devotion. These cards may look a little sort of weird to what you might expect a red deck to look like, but it's a devotion deck. I suspect. Oh man, I'm not gonna remember what it's called, but there's a card in Original Theros that does damage equal to an opponent equal to the number of your red devotion when it comes into play. I think it costs 4 mana. It's a win condition, in fact, in the Possibility Storm deck in Modern. But they probably have something like that in here, and this is annoying. I mean, it's a first striker, which is pretty good against our Bonecrusher Giant, as a matter of fact. But not very good against Rekindling Phoenix. But who knows? Maybe they have some kind of combo over there, and they're going to play... They're going to mana ramp into Star of Extinction, deal 20 damage to each creature, and we'll take 20 from the Boros Reckoner and die. That's you know what? That is an option. That is a legal play you can make in Pioneer, especially when you're playing Nykthos. Instead, it's the Chandra. This is good for them, but not that good. By the way, if you can't tell, Chandra Torch of Defiance is very clearly a riff on Chandra Pyromaster. It's a better version of Chandra Pyromaster, which is why Chandra Torch of Defiance is a staple across all formats. So, all right, I will throw away one of these mana dorks to ensure taking out the Chandra. It seems worth it to me. They get to eat one with the Reckoner. And then I have options. Is this any target? Oh. I see. Guess I'm losing both my mana dorks. That's fine. I can play a tap land plus a Bonecrusher, but the Bonecrusher doesn't really do anything, you know? I could shock the Stomping Ground in and eat 2 creatures, make my Scavenging Ooze a 4/4. That seems a lot better. Don't know what their deck does with its graveyard. Probably nothing, but while they're tapped out, we can both get this out of burn range of most things they could have. Also gaining some life, of course. So the Reckoner is sort of clearly a problem, but at least as it stands now, I mean, we're certainly winning the race. The Reckoner would be... I was going to say the Reckoner would be trading with the Scavenging Ooze because the Ooze would beat it, but then its trigger would get it. But Castle Embereth actually changes that, but so does Mizium Mortars. That Scavenging Ooze was a 4/4, not a 5/5, and we paid the price there for it. So, all that said, I think we can still win this race. Maybe. Maybe not. The castle and the trigger from the Ember Hauler here. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. We're going to have to draw something, and gotta say, another land off the top. It's hard to win the game when you have 3 non-mana cards, right? So... this is going to be a tough one. That said, my opponent is down to 1 card in hand. They have the Castle Embereth. They have the Ember Hauler. We're in for a bit of a world of hurt. We desperately need to find an answer for the Reckoner. And the problem is most of our answers for Reckoner actually deal damage to it, and it gets to take out our something on the way out. So, like, not producing mana with their Nykthos, but you know what? Let's race. Let's just race. Take 7, go to 9, swing back for 8. I mean, guess we're dead next turn. Maybe racing was a bad idea. I needed to hit it. If I hit anything there, racing's good. So that's not ideal. Here's the way I'm going to do this. So I'm going to get in with the Bonecrusher, keep the Phoenix back to block the Ember Hauler. That way they can't. Yeah, I think this is best. I liked the idea of race. I think it's okay for us to take a shot at racing there, right? Because if we hit a good card, we get to hit them down to we can take them from 16 to 8. The next turn's lethal. You know, I think that it's fine to take that hit, even though we ultimately didn't end up racing. Now all my opponent can do is attack with the Reckoner. This is going to just come at our face. So we're still behind, but you know, we were kind of always going to be behind here, right? Sure. This actually doesn't matter, the fact that it's going to take out the front half of our Phoenix. Irrelevant. We are taking 4 from this, though. So down to 5. Let's see if we can hit something. Ask and you shall receive. Questing Beast, pretty good. All right, so I think the line is pretty clear here. Get in with the team. Force the chump block from the Wily Goblin. Put my opponent down to 4. They need to find a way to kill us. And they have 1 card to do it. Because we're at 5. Castle Embereth doesn't do it itself. So that doesn't get there for them. All we have to do is hope that they didn't rip, I guess, a burn spell, basically. Because if they attacked with this and then we blocked it, it would put us down to 2. A burn spell would kill us. But they did not have it. And we got there against Mono Red Devotion. That was a nice match. I mean, we drew very poorly, but when your cards are all very strong and pull double duty or like Rekindling Phoenix, you can get there. What a nice match. Although I will note that, I mean, my opponent did misplay there, right? They used their Ember Hauler to trade with a half of a Phoenix. It didn't matter. If they had instead just sacrificed this, put us down to 3, then attacking with the Reckoner here is lethal even if we block. So, a misplay from our opponent, but you know what? I make plenty of misplays on my own. That's the way it goes, everybody. We took it down! This Gruul Monsters deck is sweet. Alright, more Gruul Monsters here, and you know what? This hand is a snap keep. Sure wish I'd get to be on the play for some of these, but this hand is kind of the dream, right? I actually talked about this in the deck tech. Llanowar Elves into Kiora into Glorybringer. That's a pretty powerful curve. I even get to get the freebie here with the Game Trail. Now, the second Mana Dork is actually fine if you think about it, because I can Kiora, untap a land, play out the next mana, the second Mana Dork there. Still have Kiora on 6, play a Glorybringer after that, get to attack. So, see what my opponent wants to do here. I guess it's humans, Pioneer Humans. I'm in. Charming Prince is a cool one. Experiment 1, a classic one. Get it? See what I did there? Classic experiment. All right, sometimes the jokes, I'm not going to say they sound better in my head because, let's be honest, I'm not thinking these jokes through before I say them, but all right, I'll acknowledge when one's a little lame. In the meantime, we will take 2 from the Experiment 1, go down to 18. This is actually just looking pretty good for us. So our opponent hasn't stopped us from doing anything we want to do. I get to continue to play out these lands here, run out the Kiora, play a blocker, because I mean, honestly, this isn't doing us much good otherwise in our hand. So we don't need the mana. I might just use it as a chump blocker next turn. That way we keep our Kiora nice and big. We untap, play Glorybringer, and we get to eat something on the other side with Exert. But the big ones, we get to draw a card with Kiora here. And the idea is if you start chaining, Kiora into Glorybringers, drawing more cards, removing their board, it becomes very difficult for your opponents to catch up. Especially in a situation like this where they're playing a bunch of tiny things, and that Kitesail Freebooter, that'll evolve this experiment one, but that's a clean miss. Non-creature, non-land card from our hand. We only have creatures and lands in our hand. And now we're just going to get the full value out of our Glorybringer here. Don't know if we're going to win. I mean, we are obviously mana flooded here. We have all of 2 non-mana sources that we have access to, but I think I'm probably just going to take it. Let Kiora fall down to 2 here. All right. Play Scavenging Ooze. Okay, so step 1, play the Glorybringer. Do it like this. Well, we get our card off of it. We cycled our Kiora. It also soaked up a bunch of damage, and now we get to remove some of our opponent's creatures. So they remove 2 counters to regenerate. Guess I'll hit this then. Now we are obviously going to lose the Kiora, but like I said, think about what this card did for us. It's such an unassuming card. It's an uncommon from War of the Spark. It's hybrid mana costs. But think about what it did here. It ramped us twice, right? It ramped us into the Glorybringer, but also allowed us to play all these extra Mystics just to get more bodies onto the battlefield. We got a card off of the Glorybringer, and it soaked up, 5 damage or whatever from our opponent. So that's, you know what? I'll take it. Especially as my opponent quietly kind of popping off over there with their humans deck. Why Experiment 1 is a human ooze? I don't know. Like, you've been experimented on, and now you're an ooze monster. I don't know if you qualify as a human at that point, but you know what? I've never been to Ravnica. What do I know? All right, so the flyer at the Kiora, everything else at us. Maybe I should have blocked with the Elvish Mystic there so I could feed it to the Scavenging Ooze. It's a possibility. This is a lot of land, though. They don't always make it easy, do they? Let's go ahead and do this now. Well, all parts of this Scavenging Ooze are going to be good. It's going to grow to be the biggest creature on the ground. In fact, it's already close to the biggest, but we get to untap, exert our Glorybringer again to take out the Mantis Rider, or we're going to get Reflector Maged. A pretty nice draw out of my opponent here. This means we're taking a minimum of 6 from this Mantis Rider before we can do anything about it. Not really where I want to be, especially as they come in on the... You gotta poke us with this Kitesail Freebooter as well. Alright, we'll block. That's a mana. I don't think I'm going to lose my mana here. It doesn't... Guess I am. So I don't think it matters particularly if I do, but I guess I did lose my mana there. I guess that makes sense. Once I get the mana in blockers, but I can't use it until damage, so I'm going to lose it. Sure, fair enough. All right. That's not what we wanted to see. So, these draws have been a little bit anemic, you might say. That said, we've still got a shot. My opponent has 2 cards in hand. We don't know what they are. We know that we can untap into a good one. My opponent's deck is insane. I didn't know this many humans existed in Pioneer. There's no champion of the parish, but this is pretty disgusting. Now, the problem for them is that they only have 6 damage in the air. And I think we have the ability to survive. It's going to be close. Actually, it probably depends on what we draw. I'm really wishing I chump blocked earlier. Because, see, the thing is here, I can Glorybringer. All right, is that good? That's got to be good. How much mana? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 9 mana. That is enough to play both of these. I could kill both their flyers, as a matter of fact, this way, leaving them with 4 attackers. But then I don't have the blockers, and I think I'm just dead. So I think the play has to be Glorybringer first. Yeah, this game's going to be tough, but if my opponent draws a land, I think we have a shot. Non-dragon creature we have to hit. But see, so I get to hit the Mantis Rider. Not for nothing, put my opponent down to 10, but the important thing is here is hit the Manus Rider, eat the Manus Rider with the Scavenging Ooze, get a 5/5 Scavenging Ooze, go to 3 life. Now we're not in range of death from the Kitesail Freebooter. We can go down to 1. My opponent's other attacks are pretty bad if they just draw land, and making us chump block isn't necessarily great either, since we get to feed him to an ever-growing Scavenging Ooze. But then we get to untap and Chandra to minus to kill the Freebooter, and all of a sudden we're ahead on board. But we were never going to beat Collected Company into Reflector Mage. So, good game. Nice Humans deck. What do I want against that? I think I want Fry. Go with like some Fry. Probably some Kraul Harpooner. Probably some Shadowspear. Alright, what do we want to cut? Questing Beasts seem pretty bad. Or at least, you know, very medium here. Bonecrushers are good. Klothys, probably not great. A little bit difficult to make it a creature. My opponent won't be killing my Mana Dork, so I can probably just run 7 of them. This is probably fine, right? I don't think I'm missing anything here. I don't think we want the Ferocidon or anything like that. This is actually just players can't game life, and I kind of want to game life in this matchup. We just want to remove all their creatures, and we have the ability to do it. We've got, you know, the Bonecrushers, the Fries, the Glorybringers, the Chandras, the Viviens. We can kill a lot of their creatures. We just have to try to, you know, have something in play after that. I'm going to keep this hand. As you can see, this hand is questionable. It is very slow, but we're on the play, and these are all good cards after that fact, right? You know, playing the Gruul Spellbreaker as a 4/4 is going to hold down the ground for a long time, and then we get to play the Phoenix. That wins the air battle. The Glorybringer starts picking off their creatures. I mean, this hand's slow, but I think it's what we want in the matchup. This is going to be basically the problematic creatures, the Experiment 1 here. But frankly, I think we can deal with it. And I think I also am probably forced into playing the Sheltered Thicket tapped, passing the turn, because we have 4 mana in hand. We're planning on casting 5 drops this game. I don't think I could mess around and try to cycle that, even though if I'd drawn a land, I probably would have. All right, Charming Prince is a nice one. This hasn't made its way into Modern and probably won't, but here in Pioneer, it's just a lot of value. You know, gaining life is never irrelevant. Well, very rarely irrelevant. How about that? But Scry 2 is extremely powerful at any point of the game, and Blinking Creatures also very good, especially when you're playing stuff like Reflector Mage. This is a nice card right here. All that said, you know, we take 2 here. We go down to 18. Reflector Mage, by the way, is probably the most dangerous card against us. One of the few cards that can interact with our monsters that are bigger than all of their creatures. I'm tempting to play that Kiora, but I don't think it's correct. I think we just save that Kiora for later. Maybe later we have the ability to play it and use the untap immediately. If I play it out now, it's not quite a sacrificial lamb. In fact, it would probably survive, and then we could draw a card off of it. But I don't think it's worth slowing down. I mean, oh, but I played the wrong land that turn. Oh, punished. I'm going to get punished. That was bad. This is not a Stomping Ground, nor is it a Rootbound Crag. It is, in fact, a Game Trail. In my defense, I've literally never played with this cycle of lands. That's one of those things. You start thinking about everything else, and sometimes you miss the easy one, right? Yeah, I didn't play these weren't highly played in Standard. I didn't play Standard then. I think this may literally be the only time I've ever cast a Game Trail in paper or online. But we got most of what we wanted here. I mean, look, okay, there's only so much I can do to defend the play. All right, go easy on me. I'm cooped up at home with a 3-year-old all day. I'll tell you, the number of games, Magic's a great game, but I've made up some pretty good ones too in the last 3 weeks of quarantine, because it turns out there's not a lot to do. And you have to come up with increasingly silly ways to keep a 3-year-old entertained. But all that said, I think we're still in an okay position here. My opponent's just getting some slow value. We got the Kiora out. We're even able to make use of the mana from it. So we get to untap into a Glorybringer now and draw a card. The Gruul Spellbreaker is going to hold down the ground. Probably the biggest concern is a Reflector Mage here, bouncing the Spellbreaker. Instead, it's just a Manus Rider. That's no problem at all. Manus Rider pokes down the Kiora to 3. But then we get to play Glorybringer, kill the Manus Rider, draw a card, and I won't say we're off to the races, because the race began probably last turn and we didn't make the starting gun. But we are now in an okay position in this game. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way so that I keep up this extra blocker here. All right, let's get a card. Worst case scenario, this thing cycled. And I think I'm just going in with the Glorybringer. Again, we are not the beatdown in this matchup. Reference the famous Michael Flores article, writer for Cool Stuff Inc. We're not the beatdown. We are the control deck in the matchup, so I'm going to play that way. I'm not going to attack with my Spellbreaker. I'm keeping back on defense. Our opponent has to react to what we're doing, or we're just going to run away with Planeswalker advantage here. So by keeping our stuff back on defense, we really force our opponent to go on the aggressive. If they want to mess with Kiora, they've got to make a bad attack. If they try to grind us out with clues, well, we're going to beat that with our Planeswalker value. So this is probably their best shot. They're the beatdown. So that means Thalia's Lieutenant's pretty good. So this is a big team now. That said, it's still not even that good of an attack for them. By committing resources to kill my Kiora, they're going to take down Kiora, but look, I get to eat this Charming Prince for free, at least in theory. And they do what they were always going to do. They kill the Kiora, but that doesn't matter. Kiora already got its value. It ramped us for this Elvish Mystic. It cycled with this Glorybringer. Not only did it soak up damage, it basically 2-for-1 since our opponent had to attack with this Charming Prince. So we got a 3-for-1 or just some absurd, crazy amount of advantage off of this really unassuming Planeswalker. It's just a very powerful card. So now we have another choice. And I do have a lot of choices here. I think the line I like is stomping the Thalia's Lieutenant, then playing the Rekindling Phoenix, and just having all the shields up. And then next turn, we get to untap our Glorybringer, which represents another removal spell, and or a blocker, not that I would intend on blocking with it, but it's a removal spell, and then we play the Chandra or the Vivien, which is another removal spell, and our opponent just has no board left, right? They end up with a board of 2/3s and 3/3s that just don't interact with our cards the way they hope that they would. So this is the monsters part of the deck, right? This is the ideas. Our opponent is sort of ostensibly playing a deck like ours. We're both sort of these mid-rangey creature value decks, but our creatures are just so much bigger. That's what makes a monster. Although I guess on Ikoria it's, I don't know, trample counters or mutate counters or whatever. We did win that game as expected. That's exactly how we want that match to play out. I am really excited for Ikoria. I will say, and I don't know if people will agree with me or not, I think they might have gone too complex with the set. And look, I'm obviously a super enfranchised player. I'm going to ship this one. I'm a super enfranchised player, so it's not like I look at the set and I'm like, oh, I don't think I can keep up with trample counters and flying counters and all that. But Mutate is an incredibly complicated mechanic by itself, and it's cool. I'm down for Mutate, all right? I'm in. But then when you add the... I'm going to go ahead and ship this Stomping Ground, I think. When you then add on top of that the counter stuff and the Mutate stuff, it's just so much going on in the set. I can't help but think if we still had the old block model, where there was a second Ikoria set coming out after this, one of those abilities would have got pushed to the second one. It's like they threw everything at the wall. I mean, Cycling came back. I would have been thrilled with just Cycling coming back, right? But you have to do new stuff in Magic, okay? I get that. Mutate and Cycling in a set, I'm in. That's incredible. Mutate and, I guess, trample counters and counter-centric stuff, all right, sure, why not? But all of it together, it's just a lot going on. I just don't know if it's necessary. But speaking of a lot going on, Elvish Mystic right here is a pretty nice draw. We have the Kraul Harpooner to fight later if we needed to. This basically is a removal spell for Mana Strider, which is one of the better cards our opponent could have against us. But starting things off with the Mystic when we mulligan, pretty good, because as usual, it's going to be this Glorybringer that brings it home for us. See what we hit. Wow. Okay, I'm in. These are two pretty good draws off the top of our deck, all right? I won't lie. Sometimes you get lucky, all right? And that's okay. So my opponent, I guess probably the best they can do is what? They can play a Mana Strider, hit our Kiora for 4. That's fine. Uh-oh. Huh. Well, I gotta say I wasn't prepared for these at Staticast. So this is a great card. It's a human, which is great for them, but also it has haste and it deals 1 damage and 1 damage to each creature with the same name as the one you targeted. So it could take down all your Elvish Mystics. In this case, it takes down 1 Elvish Mystic. And because Kiora is just kind of fundamentally a broken card, we're still going to get to play our Rekindling Phoenix anyways. And cycle. And then once we hit a land for the Glorybringer to take this down. That's lights out. But yeah, this also, by the way, pings down Rekindling Phoenix, which it does pretty effectively. That said, I'd say this game is looking just fine for us right now. Shadowspear. Okay. I won't say no to that one. This card is insane. It has so many abilities. This is just blatant power creep, right? Come on. Come on, Wizards. Remember when... Oh, there used to be some kind of card that would give plus 3-0 and trample and lifelink, and that card was just an insane piece of equipment. It was like 3 to play, 3 to equip, and people still played it in like extended. You should get Shadowspear. Are you kidding me? Not that I'm not upset about it. The card's sweet, but... Alright, let's see if my opponent wants to trade any amount of this. Do I want to trade this? That's the real question. If I block let's say I block the Thalia's Lieutenant. This is hard. I'm really tempted to block Thalia's Lieutenant, let the Kiora go down to 1. That way if we hit land, we get to play a Glorybringer and probably win the game from that point. And you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice my Phoenix. The Phoenix trades with the Thalia's Lieutenant. That's fine. This allows us to keep the Kiora for what could be an incredibly crucial turn. And worst case scenario here, we're going to untap, play the Kraul Harpooner with a Shadowspear, use the Kraul Harpooner to take down the Mantis Rider, and we're just sitting with a Shadowspear and play Glorybringers in hand. We're going to have to find mana for them, but Bonecrusher Giant, not bad either. I could just play the Bonecrusher Giant and draw a card off the Kiora. Now, I don't think this works with this, because this gets the trigger and it gets +2/+0 when it comes into play. But I believe this is an intervening if, is what they call them, but maybe not. I think the thing is it has to be true, and they don't even say if anymore, I guess. That language doesn't even apply. But, sorry, the bottom line here is I believe the creature has to have 4 power when it comes into play, and possibly even when this ability checks to resolve. So I don't think we can play Kraul Harpooner, get the +2 and draw a card. It could be wrong, but I don't think so. So with that said, I think this is actually the line here. Look, I think if we just play the Kraul Harpooner, trade it with the Mantis Rider, and I was correct, that did not work. Play the Shadowspear out here. This thing doesn't hit Planeswalkers, and it has no power. It only hits creatures. I mean, we actually get to keep the Kiora around, which may matter, may not. But look, worst case scenario, we draw something unplayable and we maybe cast this Bonecrusher Giant and draw a card. But I guess the second Mantis Rider is pretty good. All right, well, we're not in the worst of positions here. Kiora bought us so much life. We're still at 20. There's a land. Just pass the turn back. I don't mind taking some hits from the Mantis Rider for now. It's 2, I believe, to equip the Shadowspears, so I just want to draw a land. I just want to draw a land. I just want to use this Bonecrusher Giant, the Stomp, to kill whatever they're about to play. Then I want to draw a land, play Glorybringer, kill Mantis Rider, and the game will essentially be over. Double Staticaster, you say? I don't know if that matters. I suppose we have some 2 toughness creatures. Oh, this is more problematic. Oof. Now, these cards do not... They have no power, but they do not have Defender. So now they get to attack. All right, now we're actually going to need to draw some land, because I didn't mind the 3 a turn. We got a while on that one, but 6 a turn, that's a little bit of a faster clock. That's... Yeah, it looks like my opponent is going to come around to the right decision here. It is tempting to keep these back as I can double ping, but probably correct just to smash this here. But Glorybringer doesn't care much about this stuff, so Untap land off the top, and we are in business. Scavenging Ooze, also reasonable, I think. And this is the one way to punish my opponent's attack, basically. Even then, I guess it wouldn't really punish it. I don't know. I guess there's maybe no way that my opponent benefits from that there, because we can just activate it in response. But yeah. 4/4 on the ground. So, okay, so we're just back to taking 4 in the air from the Mantis Rider, but now we have a creature in play. If we do hit a land, we can play Glorybringer. If we don't hit a land, just throw a Shadowspear onto this thing and hope that that's good enough. Our worst enemy right now is a Reflector Mage. But it looks like Charming Prince is probably not that. We're going to scry 2. Okay. The Scavenging Ooze will take over the game. So if we can get this Shadowspear onto it and get an attack or 2 in, it's going to be very difficult for our opponent to come back, but Deputy Detention is pretty good. And this is interesting. You know, there's sort of, like I said, I think we're advantaged in the matchup, right? And I still believe that, but my opponent has had almost perfect cards to get them out of it. And let's see if we can rip a land here. Not quite. I have to play it, though. It does trade with the Mantis Rider. We just want to preserve our life total for as long as possible. Could take the hit. My opponent is 1 card in hand now, so now they actually are top decking, although they did scry last turn. They might just take out of it. They might draw out of it and just kill us before we ever find a 5th mana for the double Glorybringer hand that probably can't lose if we were to get to cast them at any point, but I'd say we're likely down to our last turn, and our opponent, we might just be dead. Our opponent just had it all, I guess. It's a little frustrating, frankly, because our hand was great. It even developed well, but our opponent just ripped perfects off the top that one. So I don't know if it's a good sign for the humans deck, right? We had one of our better draws against it, and they just still destroyed us here, and I just absolutely cannot find a land. Good match. All right, good game. Fair enough. Nice deck. Maybe I'll brew around with humans a little bit, because this was cool. I liked what my opponent did here. Good game.